That's not arrogance. That's just how you psych yourself. They're powerful performances. I mean, I don't think that they walk with that kind of swagger on a daily basis. They do that for the show. And for you to be able to deliver that, you need to psych yourself. Of course, we don't know if there's a wider context to what he was talking about. Maybe we will never know until this reporter actually comes up with the raw materials that he used, the actual interview. But I hope that people understand that if this is the actual quote, this is actually what RM said, it is not arrogance, it's just a natural thing. That's just how they psych themselves. In the interest of full disclosure, I haven't read the entire magazine. I don't have the hard copy yet. I ordered a copy, but it's not going to get here until next week. So the only thing that I've read is the article that was published on their website, which everyone has access to. And so whatever it is that I'm going to say right now is just based off that. If I get when I get the full magazine and anything changes, then I'm going to provide an update. But for now, everything is just based on the article that was published on their website. The writer of the article is Seth Abramovich, and he said that he was invited by Big Hit. So it wasn't them chasing Big Hit, it was Big Hit who invited them, and he flew 18 hours to Seoul to do this interview. So before we get into the controversial parts, let's just put some perspective. I think the article is written not for the fans, but for the North American music market that is not necessarily a fan of BTS. I think this is one part, like an attempt to introduce BTS to a bigger market. Hollywood Reporter is known as it's one of the biggest and most popular magazines specifically for celebrities in North America, and they reach every part of America. So that sort of strengthens my theory that this article is specifically written not for the fans. And so that should at least put some perspective on why the reporter chose to write the article the way that he wrote it. Which leads me to the good points, which is one, he did mention a lot of facts. It was a well-researched article in terms of statistics. He was able to drive home the point that it's a popular band. There were a lot of statistics on the sales, how bankable they are, records that they have surpassed, and he was able to was specific on the statistics that he was mentioning, which supports the claim that this is a popular band. So yeah, that's a good point. He was also able to address some of the critical issues that fans have been dying to know about, which number one is the controversial performance, the coming performance of BTS in Saudi Arabia. They mentioned that they decided to perform because they were invited, and they haven't performed in the Middle East for some time, and so they felt like if the country wants them, if they are invited, then they would go. So that puts it to rest. Second is the military service. So Bang Shi-yuk mentioned that they believe that serving in the military is a part of their obligation as a citizen of South Korea. And so it seems that BTS has all the intention of actually serving the military. And so I hope that puts all the controversies to rest. There was somebody who mentioned that they were denied the exception. So it seems that they are not even asking for an exemption because they have the intention of serving. Okay. He also was able to get a word with Eshi Gazette publicist team of BTS back in 2016. Their contract ended in 2017, I think, and they did not renew. So, but they were part of that big push towards the North American market, that press junket that they did so that's their group. And the reporter was able to get a word from her. She didn't say much, and that's understandable because they usually sign a non-disclosure agreement. He was also able to, in very, very few words, describe the industry, the K-pop industry. It's a very harsh description, but I think it's a necessary one. He did mention the name of a K-pop artist that passed by suicide. I'm pretty sure actually that he should not have mentioned it, simply because we don't know what drove him to do what he did. We don't know if it is because of K-pop or if it is something that he has been struggling since a long time ago. So we don't know. So that I felt was in bad taste. I don't think he should have mentioned the name. He could have mentioned the industry and he could have described it without singling out one person. Now, he did mention some things that may have been an error. Well, one is for sure an error. He did say that RM stands for Rap Monster. It used to stand for Rap Monster, not anymore. He doesn't want to go by that name anymore. So yeah, he said that. And then he mentioned that BTS share rooms in the dorm. The one room has 2 to 3 people in it. As far as we know, unless it changed, but as far as we know, except for Jimin and J-Hope, everyone has their own bedrooms. Jimin and J-Hope are the only ones that share a bedroom. So a small thing, but still an error. And again, unless it changed. Now, he also said that Jin is an aspiring actor. We know that he has a degree in acting. We don't know if it is. He is still aspiring to be an actor. He's never mentioned it in any interview. So that, I think, should be clarified, whether he still wants to be an actor. He also described Bang Si-hyuk as chubby. I'm not really sure what his weight has to do with this entire piece. Another thing, or another part of the interview that became really very controversial is the quote of RM. He said, and I quote, "We have to consider ourselves not just better than other K-pop artists, but the best," says RM, BTS 25-year-old leader. "When we're out there on that stage, we're there to conquer. We think we're the ones." And a lot of fans were very upset about this quote because they feel like it painted Namjoon as an arrogant leader of BTS. I'm not a K-pop artist, obviously. I don't sing and I don't dance, but I do know a thing or two about being in front of the public. And what he said, this is how you psych yourself when you're going to perform in front of hundreds and thousands of people. You have to make yourself believe that you deserve to be there, because you have to remember, because I personally am an audience. I pay using my hard-earned cash to watch them, and if that's blood, sweat, and tears that I'm spending on you guys. So when you go on the stage, you better be sure that you're going to give me the best performance of your life, because that is my money and I worked hard for that money and I'm spending it on you. And a lot of artists actually in the past have talked about this, and the most popular that is coming to my mind right now is Taylor Swift. After that incident with Kanye West, she had to perform. So she said that she was going to perform after that, and she had to psych herself and put herself in a position to perform. That's just a trick that all performers, or anybody for that matter, that would be performing and would be watched by hundreds and thousands of people. That's not arrogance. That's just how you psych yourself. Especially with the kind of performances that BTS, they're powerful performances. I mean, I don't think that they walk with that kind of swagger on a daily basis. They do that for the show. And for you to be able to deliver that, you need to psych yourself. Of course, we don't know if there's a wider context to what he was talking about. Maybe we will never know until this reporter actually comes up with the raw materials that he used, the actual interview. But I hope that people understand that if this is the actual quote, this is actually what RM said, it is not arrogance, it's just a natural thing. That's just how they psych themselves. Now that we know that this is an article geared towards the North American market, it is more understandable why he was really pounding on the fact that this is a popular group. We understand that. And I think as a reporter, he very much understood what it was all about, what the invitation was all about, that will represent his thoughts and ideas and still deliver the purpose of this entire article. That part is good. So he was able to prove that this is a popular band. But I felt that it did not give any other insight beyond that. This, how popular they are, their popularity, the impact, them being compared to the Beatles, that's all well and good. And I still would have wanted to keep it in that article. But I think it's also time to move beyond that, that there should be something more than just the popularity. I didn't hear about the narrative of BTS. I didn't hear about the songwriting process. I didn't hear about how different or how unique they are in terms of the creative control that they have over their own songs, their own narrative, and their own career in general. I didn't hear about how different they have managed to market themselves, because he should know more than anybody else, being a reporter for Hollywood Reporter, that the approach that BTS used in marketing themselves, in chasing success, in getting their name out there and their music out there is so important, because it is so unique and it is so against the paradigm. Getting deep into it would be beneficial not just for BTS but for Hollywood in general. There was nothing of that sort. It was just all about, this is a popular band and this is who they are and this is what they're doing. If it is a part, if that thing about their popularity is a part of a bigger story, then it would have been good. But that was the entire point. And I felt like this is the one thing that everybody talks about whenever they write about BTS or other boy bands for that matter. It's just always about popularity. And it is a stereotype about boy bands, and that's what BTS is standing up against, that they're not the typical boy band. They have control over their own narrative, their own creative. That was never mentioned in the article. And so that's a disappointment. Abramovich also mentioned that he didn't know much about BTS and that he did a cramming on his way to Seoul. And it's probably part of the reason he was sent to do this interview, because this is being written for those who don't know much about BTS, and it would help to get the perspective of somebody who also don't know much about BTS. But if you are going to do an interview and if you are going to write something, it is okay to start out with knowing nothing, but definitely not okay to go into an interview unprepared. And maybe barely knowing anything was a strategy in itself to help him see BTS from an unbiased perspective. If that is so, he should have simply asked better questions and became more analytical during the interview, because there wasn't enough depth in his content. I felt like, well, what business do you have writing about something you don't know about? It seems that he did his research, but he probably did much of his research after the interview, because if this is all that he was able to take away after flying 18 hours to Seoul, then it's not much. This is not to say there wasn't an attempt though. He mentioned Bang Si-hyuk's vision for BTS to chronicle their own experiences and thoughts through their own music and be their own creative directors. He mentioned BTS's humble beginnings and the freedom BTS has in comparison to other K-pop bands with their own creative materials and even their personal life. But it felt like all this were mentioned in passing. Again, not enough insight, not even enough creativity in the writing. The meat of what was written in this article is something that good reporters will be able to get without an interview. He just mentioned statistics that are just there for people to see. But in terms of the insight, in terms of analysis, there's nothing much. I just felt like, again, this is another article about their popularity. And I get that, this is not for me. I'm a fan of BTS. I already know most of the things that he's saying. And this is geared towards people who don't know much about BTS. But I just feel like if you were invited, if you were flown 18 hours from LA to Seoul, then give them something more. And it's not just about their message, but just to give people a perspective on how things are changing. It would have been inspiring and helpful for other artists to know how they were able to chase success, because it's not the same as how others did it. But yeah, I just feel like there should have been more insights, something deeper, something more substantial than just their popularity.